Every day I cycle into work, and most days I cycle past the Carlton Tavern, a handsome 1920s building situated on the edge of the Paddington Wreck and close to the affluent Queen's Park area. For most of the time I've been cycling past it, the Carlton Tavern has been a building site, a derelict estate in the middle of a redevelopment hotbed, destined, I thought, to become another block of luxury flats. And then one day, the Carlton Tavern was splendid again. As the newspapers told it, campaigners and activists came together to interrupt the illegal bulldozing of a heritage site. And while I commuted in blissful ignorance, the community response was underway to demand the brick-for-brick rebuild of a community pub for the people in Maida Vale. Tom Rees and Ben Martin own the lease for the pub now, and I had reached out to them to get the inside story of that redevelopment. You're listening to Served With podcast, and today's episode is about the Carlton Tavern and how Tom and Ben have made good on that campaign by creating a pub in line with the heritage and the local story they have inherited.
There's a lot of folklore around what actually happened.
Yeah. Which is really, we capitalise on that quite well. I mean,
some people do think we rebuilt it.
when someone comes in, like, you're the guys who rebuilt the pub, it's like, yeah, that was us, yeah. Like, before we break it down, it was a campaign.
Look at these hands.
These hands.
It was half destroyed.
Pretty much done. There was a bar wall that stood and the cellar.
Yeah.
What became our cellar, but the toilets.
The week before the ruling was due on whether it was a listed building.
So there's a lot of.
Yeah.
We will never know. There's a lot of
stock photos. So it looks like someone was doing some heritage work because there was tons of stock photos.
Yeah, it was. It was historic England. Sorry, that's right. Historic England were asked to come down to look at the pub. I think that it wasn't anything to do with the demolition originally. I think it was to do with, can we? You see facades of buildings like they're apartments, but they've still got the tiling of a pub or whatever, those sort of things.
Right,
so I think it was more to do with protecting certain parts of the pub because it was a good example of a 1920s particular style of building, like an arts and crafts style.
1920s is the sort of
built in 1921. It was built by a local architect. I can't remember his name. James Potter or something. He built some of the. He was from a line of architects based in Hampstead, and they built some of the Hampstead Garden suburb
stuff, and some of the stuff in Highgate is very good, isn't it?
So it was like guys. So it was a good example of that type of building. Anyway, Historic England come down, they look at it, they take tons of pictures, they go away. In the meantime, I think, and this is us sort of reading through the lines. No one really knows. No one's really copying to what actually happened.
Yeah.
But I think there would be some planning advisor somewhere would have said, look, this is going to be a nightmare. We don't want to have to protect all this facade. That would cost loads more money. So let's just proceed at risk, knock it down, and we'll get retrospective permission.
So there's stories. Some would say, like, you'll get a fine, but the cost of the flats will cover your fine. Because there were people employed at the time in the pub.
Okay.
The pub was running.
The business was alive.
Yes, it was running. Yeah. The pub was running. I think they were told to just, take the weekend off.
So you could turn up to work on Monday. And
yeah.
Well, it's been demolished.
I think it was a bit like that.
The person who turns up on Monday thinks, did I leave something on?
Because of the gas on. Yeah.
What have I done?
But I mean, whatever happened around that, again, I don't think we'll ever know the full deal. But basically, someone said, do it. I really don't believe our landlord was the guy who said,
nah.
But for the story, he's this big evil developer.
So
smash it down. I don't care.
He's currently our landlord, and he's a nice guy.
He's a good guy.
He's a nice guy.
You've got to say that.
No. Genuinely, no. We haven't really, But he is generally not. I think, I guess the way that we've read it is, in terms of that emotional. I guess talking about pubs and what they mean to the community and the emotional connection that people have to pubs, I don't think he quite understood that at the time. He didn't get it. He's an overseas businessman, and I don't think he understood what the actual building stood for and what it meant to the
He was genuinely
community.
Really happy. One of the first people through the door, genuinely really happy.
Yeah, really pleased.
I remember waving the receipt with the Carlton Tavern at us when he bought lunch with his girlfriend. He was really happy.
Yeah.
He wasn't in the detail.
Yeah.
Someone said there are other people
basically
involved as well. Someone said do it. Yeah. They said yes, which is ultimately he's copped for it, and he's had to rebuild it. So I guess what happened really was they started smashing it down, which was wrong, and local people did come out of their houses because there's a lot of residential around, and people called the council.
I'm still getting pictures. Like I got a new set of pictures the other day saying it was my birthday. I was walking past. We're still getting. You see lots of the ones in the press. There's tons of pictures you see of it being bulldozed or on the news, and there's some new ones coming every week.
I can't believe the thing ever got knocked down because there's about 10,000 people that have told us
they were there on the day. Yeah, everyone campaigned to get it rebuilt. Everyone.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it was. How the hell did they ever knock this down? But no, look, I think the lovely thing about that is that we joke, but there are tons of people who are involved. Everyone came out of the houses, and it was a really nice. It was a community. It's a story of community strength.
Yeah.
Came out and they said, "Whoa, you've got to stop." Called the council. And it was some real, swift action.
And they did stop halfway through the demolition.
Yes.
They
didn't complete it, no. Yeah. So what stands is...
I'm looking at some of the pictures.
One wall. They didn't do bad.
They had like a digger, a couple of cones, and some geezers in high vest. It was not...
Yeah, it's not a pro setup. It was all a bit like... Quick!
Yeah. I don't think they had the permits in place.
But yeah, I think the far wall remained. You can see when you look at the pub, they're just literally a very small section of the far right wall, and everything underneath remained. So like all the toilets are the original, but we kept the original urinals because we like the detail, but we've tidied them all up around.
Between the point of it getting knocked down, so it got stopped, the council got called. I think several councils got involved, and they were amazing. They sort of stopped it and said, whoa, let's just put it all on hold. I said, let's just pause and think about what's going on here. Influential local residents who kind of got everyone, corralled everyone together, as Polly, there's Rob Cope, and they kind of formed a bit of a campaigning group, used Facebook and social media to get everyone together, and it's great. And obviously everyone loves a pub rebuild and loves a one in the eye for the developer kind of story. Yeah. They went to court, and then there's this Westminster were really great. The council were great. Everyone pulled together and got behind it.
But then I think that it was originally forced to rebuild in about 2016, and they sat on it for about 2 or 3 years, and then they served more papers on him saying you've got a certain amount of time to get the build completed.
People don't like developers.
No, but particularly around pubs. Yeah. And you know what? I think if you're going to point fingers, you've got to ask the questions. So you've got to go back and say, why was the pub sold to a developer in the first place? Go and try and peel it back a few layers. Because I don't begrudge a developer trying to buy an asset and build a business, right? That's their business. We run pubs, they're our business. But I do think there needs to be maybe more protection for historic pubs or pubs in general. But also, there's tons of pubs, and they're not all viable.
And they're not all good. They're not going to be running businesses.
And that's not necessarily. That is to do with like the rent. That's to do with the cost base that everyone's working from now. Labour's gone up. Cost of goods going up. Like all these headwinds, as the big boys talk about headwinds every year. There's massive headwinds coming our way. How do we offset them? Well, if you're small operators, you get no chance to offset. You just got to deal with them all. And you either put your prices up, which is what is happening now, or you go under. And there's tons of businesses that will just go under.
Between 2000 and 2019, 22% of the pubs in the UK closed. Perhaps a decline in casual drinking culture, or, as Tom suggests, economic headwinds destroying businesses. This is Served With podcast, and next, I wanted to understand how the Carlton Tavern is going to continue to buck the trend after it survived by the skin of its teeth.
I think, we do talk about this stuff. It's quite some macro industry stuff, but when you're doing a single site and you're really you know the area inside out. Ben, having grown up there, I live down the road. We spent a lot of time walking the area, walking the site, looking at the houses, looking at the cars, looking at the building, knowing the people in the area, and we did know that area completely inside out. So I think you've got to do that in any locations. Absolutely the most important thing, and knowing the traffic flows, what direction people move in, towards the tubes, away from the tubes. Are you on a thoroughfare? Are you where someone gathers? All of those things are incredibly important. You can be in the middle of. There's businesses that fail in the middle of central London. They've got hundreds of thousands of people piling past, but they're just not in the right spot for dwell time or whatever. Yeah,
it was like it felt like there was so much. It wasn't the risk. It was like going into a building that had been pretty much knocked down and not having any certification for the electrics. There was a lot, plumbing. There's all these other things that you think about behind the scenes of taking on something, that responsibility. And once we take it on, then it becomes our responsibility.
It wasn't a working building. And I think Westminster guys were great at getting the rebuild done, but it was like a film set. So it wasn't an operating pub. And everyone kept using this phrase. It just has to be an operational pub.
But their version of operational is very, very different from our version of operational. I think Cellar would help to make it a bit operational. Actually, serving beer is definitely.
I think the barrier for that was like, if you could open a bottle of beer, put it on the counter, put some change in a lockbox, that's effectively operational.
It's kind of intimidating to go where somebody else has not done so well. I mean, the Carlton Tavern before hadn't failed completely, but it was obviously not the pub that you wanted to create.
No.
There's obviously and the kind of the big picture background and the reason that the Carlton Tavern ends up getting knocked down for flats in the first place is a decline in the number of people drinking at pubs and a decline in the number of pubs in big picture terms in England.
Yeah.
And I wonder what you think about, or how you thought about making a success of it in that context.
Yeah.
Or they're not putting the right offer in. And I think I think one of the benefits of working for our previous pub company is we took quite a lot of pubs that are, some were backstreet boozers, some were on high streets, some were a little bit further out of cities, and you have to start with what the pub tells you what you need to do for the environment. So we've talked about this quite a lot in terms of, we can put what we want out of a pub into it, and we've done it enough and kind of know what we'd like out of a pub, but the environment creates that offer for you, if you know what I mean, in some respects. So you need to kind of adapt that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people fail because they have a brand or a concept. They sort of, they're going to drop that concept in there, and that is it. And they have not a lot of fluidity in terms of their kind of.
There's more listening than vision. And you've inherited a site with a huge amount of character and like a specific story.
Yeah.
You personally built it back brick for brick.
Absolutely.
Personally, I'm still, my shoulder's still playing up.
As you said, you wrestled the crane to the ground.
Yeah.
Snatched the controls out of his hand.
They were there. Yeah.
And then you know the area very well. How have you translated that character to the pub?
Yeah. So I think that the good thing is we know pubs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think we started a base of our values as well, which is what we kind of was all about: local supply, sustainability. So we kind of it all began from these values that we wanted to work within, because we've compromised ourselves, I suppose, working for the bigger guys, and kind of sometimes you just have to just roll out pubs, and there's a lot of waste. We see a lot of money being wasted on. I know on a kind of identikit that's just like the opening identikit, they just spend tons of money getting all this kitchen equipment in, and it ends up just sitting in cellars, and just loads of money gets wasted. I think our values were all about just making sure that we didn't waste anything before we started.
This is Served With Podcast, and next I wanted to ask how Tom and Ben intended to create a pub to reflect and express the local area, to live up to the community pub name.
We understand every nook and cranny of that business, so because we've literally been on our hands and knees trying to get it up to where it is today. And I suppose, I guess there was a Heritage were working alongside the builders to make sure that they were doing all the mouldings. And I think some of that detail stuff they probably concentrated a little bit more than the actual solid build.
There's a few bits that we've had to go back and address.
But we chased a lot of bits with the builders.
They've done a better job on the details.
The details are a lot better job than some of the actual fundamental build.
Because that's more expensive.
Well, yes, I guess, and that's the stuff that's the stuff you can do at pace, and that's the stuff that maybe wouldn't have got scrutinised as much during the rebuild. Yeah. So all the mouldings look great. You walk in, and it is quite amazing when you do have people coming in and go like, this was rebuilt like 3 years ago, because they have done a really good job. But until you actually really look at it all, and then you can see.
Sometimes it sort of lean on. We tried to put a.
We watched a baby changing thing up the other day, and literally Tom almost went through.
There's some big voids in that building. I don't think there were voids before. Look at the site. I didn't believe that the site was ever going to be a pub, and when I saw a big hoarding outside that said opening soon.
Right,
I was like, oh, okay. So that's on piqued my interest.
Yeah.
Anyway, inquired about it. They came back with some eye-watering level of rent. Fast forward another 6 months.
Yeah.
We're on furlough. The world's changed, turned upside down. Yeah. We had another conversation that was a little bit more amenable. We wanted to work with local suppliers, be slightly different to all the business we've done before, really engage local communities. The idea of localism and kind of trying to keep supply chain small at the time of the pandemic felt really pertinent because everyone was re-engaging with their local area. The building.
Yeah. It's a bit of a mix of an area, isn't it? Because you've got Queen's Park, and there's this kind of thoroughfare on Queen's Park that kind of comes around.
Yeah.
And then the Carlton Tavern itself is on a slightly quieter. It's a through road. There's cars driving along it, but there's not less foot traffic.
Yeah.
Next to it.
Yeah, we're on the other side. So we're one of the major entrances to the Rec, which is the park, Paddington Rec. But instead of it's pretty standalone, instead it's very residential where we are. We've got the school just across the way.
Yeah.
And it used to be a sheltered accommodation, which is now closed and they're going to knock that down and rebuild it. I think it's going to be assisted living there. And then there's all the development on Carlton Vale, which is happening at the moment. Like huge amounts of development.
Yeah. I've got a bit of beef with people talking about community pubs, because what they really mean, it's used as a bit of a byword for kind of blue-collar drinking, you know, geezers at the bar drinking cheap bland lager. But every community is different, right? So every community pub needs something different. And our community is, you've got St John's Wood, we pull from St John's Wood, from Abbey Road, from Maida Vale, from Queen's Park, from Kilburn. There's a massive diverse and tons of money as well, lots of like well-established money. So we've tried to retain the pub and then also do food in a much more meaningful way. And
like a small batch distillery.
The gin's actually a really good example of perhaps where we thought something would be the case and we did. We walk into most pubs now and there's about 50 gins behind the bar. The problem is, right, you can't train. I think it was one of your previous podcasts, the wine sommelier guy said, you know, if you've got a massive list, you've got to think about how to train the team. It's much better to have a smaller curated list that they know a lot about. And with gin, we've basically got one gin because we ordered loads and they didn't come. But we used to work in this world where you had to have, you know, and then we tried to cut it down in our old companies, but you still had 15 gins. The staff knew 2 of them, and the guests knew 1 of them. Yeah. So they come in and just see Hendrix and go, I'll have that, or Gordon's. And you don't sell them weird and wonderful.
I think it just feels really inauthentic, and I think that's what we kind of base on. We need to be authentic. And so that's why part of it is picking the story. So a lot of our stuff has a story behind it. So Victory Gin has a story behind it. Yeah. Sapling has a story behind it. So it's a lot easier to sell it into our team.
And you know what? No one has asked for. People ask for a gin and tonic. Every now and then we tell a bit of a story, and people love it.
And that's enough. You know,
that's enough. People don't care.
This is Served With podcast, and I'm listening to the story of the Carlton Tavern. Finally, I was curious about what it means to create an authentic pub.
There's that George Orwell essay, right, about the perfect pub.
Yes,
absolutely, yes.
And one of the attributes is that they sell liver sausage.
Okay, yeah.
Right, okay.
Like you can buy liver snacks like liver sausage. That's one of those things.
I think if George Orwell was alive today, he'd be able
to get too much liver sausage. You weren't going to have much longer left.
What you want is the gentrified Scotch egg, right? That's the modern liver sausage.
Yeah. With the runny yolk. That's what we do. The runny yolk. I mean, I guess it's funny because you try to you want to do like the bell jar with a pork pie, and you know but you can't put them on the bar anymore because everyone gets freaked out by health and safety. Like when we were putting our bar snacks list together, and I'm just talking about the dry bar snacks, we just went, let's just get potatoes, bang in packet of crisps, charge £1, dry roasted peanuts, salted peanuts in a packet, not in a jar where you put artisan pistachios, blah, blah, blah. Which we've done pubs that done that, and I'm not against it, but we just wanted a good old classic, scampi flavoured fries.
And don't charge crazy money for it. Yeah. It's like,
what the best pub snacks is when the pub that I used to go to back in Bristol when I was at university. What they did was you'd be sat in the beer garden, and then a woman would come up with a big tray of crucially freshly cooked sausage rolls. I've got this many sausage rolls, and you're all buying them.
And when they're gone, they're gone.
And when they're gone, they're gone, and they're hot.
And
that to me is the...
Were they homemade sausage rolls?
Yeah, she just made them.
Nice.
Just taken them out of the oven and made them.
That's great.
To me, that's the pinnacle.
Well, we was talking about... Funny enough, we talked about this last night.
Need some searing mustard to dip it in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our quiz master couldn't do the quiz last night, so Tom done the quiz. You should get a hawker tray because it'd be cool, and you could sell ice creams or little snacks, trinkets.
Yeah, I think part of the issue with that is that lady that you're talking about obviously just did that. And whether she was the landlady or not, that was like such an ingrained part of their process. That's fine. When you start layering it on top of all of the little things that we already do in a modern business, it becomes like yet another thing. And then there's a question of, is it authentic? Does it make sense for the business?
Well, it's like roast potatoes on the bar on a Sunday night. They're nice little touches, right? They were like you don't
free spuds,
free spuds on the bar. You get that.
The moment you're asking whether it's authentic, you've lost, because if you were truly authentic, you would just do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess that's it's really hard to. We've got a pub that's 101 years old, or a year old, depending on how you look at it. But it looks like it's 100 years old, and it's been a sort of bit of a challenge. But I think we've done it. A lot of people don't know that it's new, and it was pretty bare when we first opened it. Partly that's because we were just a bit behind doing the decorations, but But it's also, we just built it up with stuff, right? Merch from people, some of it's modern, some of it's old, some of it's from our personal lives.
It's just stuff that's
staff.
and it doesn't feel contrived, well, we hope it doesn't, and you do go in places where you feel that everyone's just done like a bric-a-brac list, and they've done this new refurb and they've just dropped it all in, and it just doesn't, it feels like, we feel quite organic the way it's happened, because it literally has happened organically, because we've just added bits in, and I've cleaned out my cellar the other day, bought some
I remember I worked for Big Poco when I started, and lots of things were great, but some of it was pretty contrived, and I remember doing a project on a particular brand of oldie worldy pubs, and it was literally a company, and it was like, right, the budget is X per pub. You drive around with a massive load of like jugs and stuff, and it's the same stuff just going up, and someone comes in, an expert comes in and looks at the bar and goes, right, you need 2 copper things there, two things there.
Usually a camera. I think I saw a camera.
And it was so depressing. It was just awful. And
old camera. You need 2 old cameras. There's always a couple of old cameras knocking around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You cannot get dinner at the moon underwater, wrote George Orwell, but there's always the snack counter, where you can get liver sausage sandwiches, mussels, a speciality of the house, cheese, pickles, and those large biscuits with caraway seeds in them, which only seem to exist in public houses. Best of all, he continued, I'm able to order the snacks via the StoreKit QR code mobile ordering system. It's an extremely elegant piece of software where I order in 25 seconds or just 5 taps, and it remembers my order for next time, which is particularly useful because I'm engaged in recursive buying behavior. It batches my order with that of my friends, so it sends 1 ticket for all of us to the kitchen and a separate one to all of us for the bar, which wouldn't matter to me at all, but I can hear whoops of delight from the kitchen staff. I go to the moon underwater, wrote George Orwell, to listen to my favourite podcast, Served With. I subscribed immediately when I was contemplating setting up a hospitality business for myself because of nuggets of wisdom from all areas within the industry. And you, my reader, should subscribe too. I will see you very soon for another episode of Served With.